time. All right, click that, got it on there, and we're going to get started. So the topic for tonight was welcome, number one, to the Young Entrepreneur Syndicate. Typically Monday night call. It is Tuesday night because we didn't want to miss out on, New Year's did have a little activity, I suppose. Good to be here. The topic for tonight was on this agenda that I've made out for the rest of the year. This one happened to be mine. It's called Put Fun in the Fundamentals. And Jim, I have to say, I knew you were going to call me out on, coming up with an acronym for fun because it was capitalized, fun in the fundamentals. So I have spent a couple of different versions on acronyms, but we're going to get to that later. We're going to first talk about what's not fun in business. So to put fun in the fundamentals, all of us have different businesses. And some of us have varieties of business. We've got different business ventures. And so the fundamentals for each of those ventures can be very different. Ultimately, some things remain the same. Our marketing presence, our planning, obviously the bookkeeping and taxes and all that stuff. Those are the fundamentals. But the fundamentals also take the fun out of business. It's the have-to stuff, the drudgery stuff. That's not where we like to spend our productive time, our creative time, but it still has to be done. It's getting the necessary stuff done. And so how can you make fun with that? If it wasn't the last time, maybe a couple times ago, it might even have been one of our podcasts. I talked about my wife's revelation, her epiphany with the laundry. And she realized that she just had to make friends with the laundry is how she put it. And, the chores, the mundane tasks that we do can either be drudgery or you can make friends with it. So whatever your situation is, whatever your business is or your businesses are, just you have to embrace that part of it. So to start with this, I wanted to first look at burnout. I'm going to start with this because what makes things unfun? You've heard Jim and Rachel and I over the course of the last year and a half talking about being an entrepreneur is hard. Working for yourself is hard. And I mentioned before that, it's something that we do by ourselves, but we can't do alone. And so it's just different. It's a whole different animal. It's a different beast, but we still can come up against the exact same thing that people who work in the corporate environment or working for someone else, even on a small mom and pop basis, even farmers, for example, can still have burnout. And so I'm going to hit the top burnouts just so we can all be aware of what's out there, right? Whether you love your job or not, these are just some red flags, or maybe I should just say caution flags. Work overload, excessive workload. And being an entrepreneur, I can tell you that is one of the big challenges, knowing when to stop, right? So be aware of work overload. The other thing is being aware of lack of control. There are some things you can't control. You can't control when someone's going to get back to you. You can't control the weather. You can't control the national, the local, the state economy. You can't control if there's going to be another lockdown or how things are going to happen out there. So feeling powerless and out of control is just one of those things that can force you down that burnout thing. So, or, here's the other thing, wanting to get paperwork done where you need something done right away. If you need something faxed from another office and you want it now, but you can't get it, you're out of control. And those are things that can be frustrating. Unclear expectations. And this is why it's so important to have a business plan. Unclear expectations are one of those things. And again, if you have employees working for you, very important to have very clear expectations for them because you don't want them to burn out, okay? Lack of recognition or reward, that's the number one reason that people shift gears, quit companies, is lack of recognition. It's not monetary reward, it's the lack of recognition, not feeling appreciated. So you need to feel appreciated. And even if you're working for yourself, you need to find ways that you can show, or even have your spouse, just cue them in and say, hey, I need you to just give me an attaboy or an attagirl. Let me know I'm doing a good job, and to keep doing it. So lack of recognition or reward is another cause of burnout. So just make sure you're getting your in basket filled there. A poor work-life balance, and this kind of gets to that work overload, knowing when to quit, knowing that you've got to grind, but you have to stop grinding to recharge. And that's just the long and the short of it. A toxic work environment. We can create our own toxic work environment sometimes in our heads. We can do the negative talk, or get down on ourselves. We're not getting enough done, etc. So make sure that you're not bullying yourself or giving yourself your own toxicity, right? So know that. And here's the big one, especially for entrepreneurs, is job insecurity. We have to hustle and hustle and hustle and stay on it and stay on it. Because if we stop production, production stops. Production stops, income stops. So we have to have some sort of security. And on that part, that's just, do what you have to do to feel secure, right? Have a savings plan, have a backup plan, have multiple income streams, okay? And then lack of social support. We don't operate in a silo. We're social creatures. And so if we're not getting enough social support in our jobs, and I'm not talking about outside the job, I'm talking within our jobs, within our culture, our work culture, whatever our culture is, those are all sources of burnout. Okay. So those are just highlights. So I'm not going to focus on all those because we're putting fun in the fundamentals. But to do that, we have to know what's out there. What are the weeds that are out there? So tonight I have six items for you to put fun in the fundamentals: finding enjoyment in work and mundane tasks that can significantly improve your overall experience with your work. All right. And I'm going to use a couple of fun things too as we go through here. I think they're fun anyway. Number one, set clear goals and rewards. We all talk about our plan and getting that plan right. But what we need to put in there, at least for ourselves, it doesn't have to be in your business plan necessarily, but when you're doing your weekly planning, when you achieve those goals, set up a reward system for yourself. I don't care if it's a gold star, or you're taking yourself out to lunch, or you can go get a triple mocha latte, whatever it happens to be. Set yourself some sort of clear goal and rewards. And in this, break those tasks down into smaller tasks. When you're working your plan, you're setting those goals, make sure you're giving yourself shorter term objectives. Don't just reward yourself when you get to the big stuff, reward yourself along the way. So figure out what works with your line of work, whether it's production, artistic, client gathering, marketing. Figure out where your breaks are and give yourself some reward there. And here's my caveat: stretch, but don't break. All right. It's good to push and push hard, but you don't have to push so hard that you break. And Rachel pushes. I've never seen her find her breaking point yet. But sometimes our body will, I reached a breaking point last year, right? You don't want to get to that point, because sometimes you hit a wall and it might take you 3 months to get back up off the floor. And with number one, with setting clear goals and rewards, make sure you're tracking your progress. It is so important for yourself, and even longevity for your business, to have the data so you can look at trends. Looking backward can give you a glimpse into the future. And also it can set you up if you decide to exit your business or sell your business. Having as much data there is going to build value for that business. So if you're keeping track of all that stuff that's minutia, turn it into a fun challenge. You are setting yourself up for future success. Okay? And that gets to that exit strategy. That should be part of your business plan anyway. When you go to exit, how are you going to sell that? How are you going to monetize it? So that's number one. Number two, create a pleasant environment. And this is one thing I like to see. I like to see you guys working. I like to see what's in the background. We've got all these things. Even when I've done virtual backgrounds, I'm not just somebody who pops in on a virtual background. I go through them and I find something that I like, something that if this was my home, if this was my office, what's my virtual background? What messages am I sending myself with that virtual background? Where is my workspace and what's it like? And I have to say, my wife had a new client and they wanted to see our house, and she walked them through our house, including my office, which you see here. And it's organized and it's neat, but only I know where everything is. And because I have several different businesses over on one table and workspace over here, there's a whole set of stuff for that business. And behind me, there's one over in that corner. And then I've got my workspace here and what's behind me. So I've got 3 offices in one home office. And it looks disorganized, but it really is very organized. But when I had somebody else walk through it, I was pretty self-conscious. I said, oh my gosh, you took them upstairs to my office without me going up to at least clean the desk off. And they assured me everything was cool. But again, what does your office space look like? Is it someplace that's enjoyable for you to be? And if you enjoy messes and that kind of stuff, if you're comfortable in that environment, then have a messy office, right? Whatever your feng shui is, I don't care. That's not up to me. It's up to you to figure out how you work best. But make it pleasant, and it should be something that spurs or spurns creativity. You need something that's going to activate that intellectual stimulation that you need to move forward with your day. One of the things that plants, pictures, right? We all know that. One of my favorites to put fun in it would be get yourself I used to have a Far Side calendar. Anybody follow the Far Side cartoon? Yeah, there you go, Jim. Absolutely one of my favorites. Far Side #1, Dilbert #2. Anyone who's worked in corporate environments, Dilbert is absolutely stellar. And from my son-in-law, who always has dad jokes are awesome. If you can start your day every day looking at a Far Side, a Dilbert, or a dad joke of the day, and a joke a day calendar, it's a great way to start your day. So, and they say that you should be laughing at least once a day, a good laugh. And I will be the first to tell you, I don't laugh near enough. I'm usually too serious, but I think I'm the funniest person I know. My wife's heard me say that for the last 34 years, but I think only I get my stupid humor. Nonetheless, find ways to make yourself laugh, even if you're chuckling inside. And I would prefer you do like a calendar where you get it once a day instead of looking for funny memes on social media, because that can be a rabbit trail that can waste half an hour or 45 minutes of your time. So if you have a calendar and you get that little fun thing that spurred out right away, then you're done, right? Fidget spinners, stress balls, those squeeze balls, little things like that. So look at your work environment. How can you make it more pleasant? Okay. #3, we've talked about this one over and over. Practice mindfulness. And I actually heard something the other day, and it was daydream with intent. So if you're just going to check out for a minute and you're just going to daydream and let your mind wander, do it before you get into that space. Do it with intent. Ask for creativity. Ask for something new. Ask for something from the universe to drop into your mind and give you something from it. So take those checkout times, but be intent. Be purposeful with that. And set clear and realistic goals with that mindfulness. When you're going to work, make sure you're giving yourself break time in there. Okay, you've got to be purposeful with this. If you're going to be mindful, you need to at least give yourself some sort of break. We're not designed to work until our bladder's ready to burst and then take a 5-minute break and then jump back into it. Work like you've got a schedule and a system. And I have to share a couple of things here. I recently watched the Willie Nelson special, the Willie Nelson and Family special on Netflix. No, it was Prime, I guess. Anyway, great movie, great history. I was never a country music fan, and I'm not a music aficionado, but the story was absolutely phenomenal. And one of the things that I loved was Willie Nelson with his family, and in his bus, his tour bus, he has the 3 Nelson rules on a big sign. And so when you go to his house, he's got these 3 rules. And I laughed out loud when they're recounting these rules. The first one is, don't be an asshole. Rule number 2 is, don't be an asshole. And rule number 3 is, don't be a goddamn asshole. And I thought, that kind of sums it up, because at the job I'm doing in the mornings right now, when I've got new people coming on, I have a 2 rule, just 2 rules. And number 1 is don't be a dumbass. And number 2 is keep up. 2 simple things, keep up, right? And don't be a dumbass. It's just, and my son-in-law, bless him, he's got younger children, and excuse my language if I've offended anybody here, but he always calls those people knuckleheads. So we all know what we're talking about here. People have that propensity to go down that path, but make friends with it. It can be funny and it can be fun if you make it, even if it's, directing people toward behavior you don't want. Let's have some fun with it. My belt rules are pretty easy. They're easy to remember, and everybody understands exactly what I mean when I break the rules to them. So set your own office rules, but have fun with them. Number 4, gamify your tasks. This kind of goes into that setting goals and rewards, but if you can turn them into challenges, mini challenge, if you do something one day, but then you try and beat your own, gamify it, try and beat what you've done. If you made 15 cold calls, make 16 the next day, just find a way to challenge yourself, to turn it into a challenge, and then pat yourself on the back, right? Once you accomplish it. My wife has told me my entire career, all the different careers I've had, she always tells me, everything's not a competition. And that's true for my wife. But for me, everything becomes a competition. I want to be the first one to shovel my walk when it snows. I want to be the first, person on my whole block that has my lawn mowed and edged. To me, it's a competition. And I have fun with it. It's not a stressor. It's fun. It's something I do for fun, and it propels me forward. So find out what it is that you can do, that you can gamify what you're doing. And Sam Riley, I just saw your chat up here. I said bad words, and I made it here. Believe me, I can say a lot worse, and I've said a lot worse. But I try and keep it clean for those of you who have children running around the house. So anyway, gamify your tasks. Number 5, change perspectives. Gets right back to what I was saying at the beginning. Instead of seeing tasks as mundane, reframe them. Turn those into fun challenges. It's how you look at things. Have your family help you, right? Especially those of you with kids, have them reframe what you don't like to do in ways that, how would they approach it? Ask for some outside influence, outside input. How can I look at this thing differently? How would somebody totally new to what you do your job? You might find some really neat nuggets in there, and you might find some cool shortcuts, but make it fun. Turn it into a project that can be fun for other people as well. So that's what I'm going to say about that one, changing your perspective. And number 6 is mix it up. We all have those mundane tasks that we have to do. We've got to get into it, and we tend to do those in the same routine, the same way, over and over and over. And what's going to happen if we do that? We're going to end up with the disliking it or the burnout or whatever. So mix it up. Find ways to change it up. And it shouldn't be that difficult. You're all intelligent, creative individuals here on this phone. You've got the drive. Find a different way to retune it, retool it. I've had, in fact, if anybody here who's follows Jim Quick or read his book Limitless, there you go. He talks about when he gets up in the morning, he's right-handed, I assume. When he brushes his teeth with the opposite hand. So if you're left-handed, brush your teeth with your right hand. It totally re-engages your brain in a different way. A decade, two decades ago now, I had an ongoing headache. I had some pinch in my back or something. I couldn't, went to a chiropractor, nothing worked. I had this ongoing headache, and I don't get headaches. And it was just a nagging thing. And I had one of the supervisors I worked with at work told me, he said, put your watch on your other wrist. Just, I always wear a watch on my left wrist. And he said, put it on your other wrist. And literally within a couple of hours, my headache subsided and eventually went away. I mean, just changing things up. We are such creatures of habit, and our brains are wired in such a certain way that we do things the same way. We can literally reroute how things are happening inside of our own brain, the circuitry, if we just find little ways to change things up. So find out what those are. Try brushing your teeth with your opposite hand. Change your watch out. Just try. I've got one son who's ambidextrous. Riley, I think you know about this. He can do just about anything, left-handed, right-handed, doesn't matter. I don't have that, so it really throws me if I've got to use an opposite hand. So find ways to mix it up. Find different methods to do things, different ways of doing the same thing. Just change things up a little bit. You are in control. You've got job security. So do what you want to do with your business. And if you're tiring of something, you don't have to ask for permission, especially for the little things. Just do it. And if you don't like it, go back to the way it was. It's pretty simple, but give yourself that permission to mix things up. And you'll be surprised at what can happen. Finding joy in the tasks that you do all the time, I think, is one of the secrets to just being happy. Not feeling like, oh, I've got to do this again. Being happy is a state of mind, but it's also a state of being. It's a state of doing. And how we do things is part of what is going to make us happy or unhappy. So just be in tune with that. So I'm going to close with this. Tried to keep it short tonight. We're going to come up with an acronym for fun with fundamentals. So I've got two. The first one I didn't think is fun, but the first one is F is focus on priorities. U is utilize your resources. And N is nurture your body and mind. Now that just seems professorial, I guess. Too much there. So I had to mix it up a little bit. We went for this fun. F, follow your passion. What are you passionate about? And that might change from day to day. Follow your passion. U, use your humor. Make a joke. Crack some jokes. Lighten it up a little bit, right? That leads me to N. N, never take work too seriously. It's just a job. It's just a livelihood. You can always do something else. You can always do more. You can always make up for what you didn't get done today, tomorrow. You can. Give yourself permission to not take things so seriously. I know we all put all this pressure, especially entrepreneurs, we put all this pressure on ourselves, working for ourselves. And even if we're working for someone else, wanting to always produce and produce and produce, give yourself some permission to lighten up a little bit. And it might give you some more momentum. You might find more energy in what you're doing and how you're doing it. You might find more creativity. You might get that blink moment where you've got the next best idea of how to approach a hard client, a hard case, a new project, or how to do a new pitch, how to refine a pitch. There's so many different things that we can do once we allow ourselves and give ourselves the permission to just have some fun with it. So that really is a whole lot of bad stuff to look out for and the good stuff that you can do, little tweaks. And if just one of those things helps you get through tomorrow a little bit better, then we've done our job. And if you can do that on a consistent basis, it's going to help you with your business. That's all I got for tonight, guys. I'll open it up to comments from Jim, Rachel, and then any questions, comments anyone else has, raise your hand. You know the drill.
Thanks, Rod. Happy New Year, everybody. I just put in the chat, raise those hands. So I'll just recap for a minute. Then you've got Riley's hand up already. Taylor's hands up. So here's my brief recap. By the way, Rod, you ended with, hey, it's just a job. Don't take things too seriously. What's interesting about that, it made me quickly reflect back on my racing career. And as I was coming to a close on that, I just felt like that was my identity. That's all there was in that portion of my life. And I knew it was time to stop. But my coach at the time, David Meltzer, he said, Jim, you could always go back to it. And that gave me the courage to put it behind me and walk away. And now I'm like, why would I ever go back to that? I'm progressing forward. I have more important things in my life. I found other ways to fill my soul with different things, So to your point, it's just a job. Don't get overstressed over it, overwhelmed over it. Yeah, maybe it's how you make your living, but there's so much opportunity out there. It's not worth the pressure we put on ourselves sometimes. So have some fun with it. I love the topic because being an entrepreneur should be fun. Doing what we love what we do, the whole line. And it's a great way that you broke it all down. It's interesting you brought up the environment. I've had the same environment in my office the last year and a half, 2 years. And I was just telling my daughter the other day, I'm like, I want to switch it up. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm getting bored. I want to challenge myself to look at different things, and, have different decor, more books. I actually hung a whiteboard. I was inspired by my time consulting over at Flagner Fail. They used a lot of whiteboards over there. I thought, I need a whiteboard. So I hung that in place of something else. So it's always good to evaluate your environment and change it up if that's what you need, a little spark in your life. Maybe add a little music in the background or a candle or different type of light, or like you said, Rod, plants, pictures, whatever. But it can change your mood. I mean, our mood sets the tone with how we interact with people. If you're smiling, on the phone, people can tell that you're a happy person. If you're not smiling, if you're not happy with your environment, it will make a difference. So I like that point. I like the setting rewards for goals. It's interesting. So I'm consulting for a Wagyu beef company, and I sent a bunch of discount codes out to friends today. I'm like, hey, you've been working hard, celebrate, grab a steak, but we need to celebrate even the small wins, because sometimes that's going to give us the momentum to go after the big stuff. So really good point there. And then just job insecurity. I like that you also brought that up, that sometimes that gets in our way of having fun. Just realize that we're capable of so much. And sometimes challenging ourselves to do more will take away that job insecurity, because I think, and I believe that if you really are giving it all your effort and trying hard, you're going to see that success that you're expecting, and you should be having fun while you're doing it. I think when we get caught up in what's going on around us and maybe we're not giving it our best, all of a sudden we start feeling insecure about our job and about our next client, or our sales, whatever that looks like. Turn that around and really evaluate the kind of effort you're giving. I talked about reading Grant Cardone's 10X book on the last call, and I finished it off a few days ago. I really enjoyed it because 10X is his line, but I love the principle. Giving it more. How much more can you give? How much more opportunities are in front of you? And are you taking advantage of those opportunities? Are you getting sucked in by other things like Instagram or social media, or late night partying, whatever it looks like? Look at where you can improve your business and not get sucked in, and don't have that insecurity about the success of your business. So I'll keep it there for now, since you got some hands up. So Rod, go ahead and call on whomever, and I'll take the mute off.
All right, Rachel, I'll let you follow up tonight. Riley, you're up first, I believe. Go ahead and unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
So I had a question, kind of more for like some tips and tricks and thoughts. One of the fun things about being an entrepreneur is that you are working off of all of your talents. And so you end up having multiple streams of income or jobs and whatnot. And I have that going on, and it's super fun and I'm enjoying it. I am struggling with, not struggling is not the right word. I would like to be better at trying to figure out how to allocate my time to the different jobs that I have. And I'm looking for some tips and tricks and ideas about doing that.
Well, I'll jump in here first just because I didn't mute my mic yet, so I'm up. Sometimes, and I don't know what all of your other stuff is. I know you're busy with other things, but sometimes I've gone through phases where I do something with every business every day, and that I found didn't work well for me. So what I did was I would focus on, and you know what the priorities are of your business. I would allocate a particular day or 2 days on one business and other days for, the primary stuff. So sometimes that doesn't work. There are some things that require constant monitoring and management. But if you can, schedule it so you can get all of it done in one day, I find I'm more focused. And studies show this out too. We're not optimal performing when we are multitasking.
Mhm.
So if you're trying to juggle 3 different businesses all in one day, you're juggling. That's exactly what you're doing as opposed to being focused. So look at your schedule, look at your white space and see what you're currently doing. And I would say try budgeting some of that into blocks, larger blocks, or even half a day on one, and then the afternoon you're going to focus on another instead of trying to do a whole bunch of one thing. So don't allow yourself to get scattered. That's the biggest advice I have for you. And play around with your schedule a little bit. And again, you'll find what works for you. What works for me may not work for anyone else on this call. So find what works for you and don't be afraid to experiment with that a little bit, but give it time. Everything's going to take, a new habit, 3 weeks. Give yourself some time with it when you're redoing that schedule. Jim or Rachel?
I want to jump in too. Riley, I feel you. That is me like all the time. So here's a few things that work for me. One is we gave these as gifts to everybody on my team last year. And it's a sheet that says the week on it. And it's a tear pad. And I like that they tear off. So you can get a fresh one every week. And it's odd for me to actually be recommending writing something down because I feel like I keep a very robust digital to-do list, but there's something I still like about writing it down and crossing it off. It ends up looking more like this. But I like that. The other thing is, and I don't know if you're working with a lot of multiple people, but we use this tool. It's free. I really like it. It's called Google Chat. I don't know if you've ever used it, but I like it because not only can you chat with other people, but you also can make tasks. So I have it organized by client. And then we've got tasks for each client, and you do get the satisfaction of crossing it off, and you can add deadlines for yourself or for other people. And I mean, honestly, you could make it for your staff if it's people working for you, or you could make it for other people in your life who are supposed to be doing things, and you can share it with them and call them out. If my kids were a little bit older, I'd be putting them on there, but they get a reprieve for a couple more years. But that helps for me. The last thing is, I don't know if you're an iPhone user, but are you an iPhone person?
Oh.
All right. Well, for any iPhone people out there, I don't know, Android people might have this too. You can make something bigger on your a widget on your home screen. You probably have it. I keep my cross off my to-do list of my hot stuff that's today stuff right on there. So it's in my face all the time. And I like thinking about my to-do list and my goals and all of those different time management things when it's what are the hot things for today? What are the things for the week? What are the things for the month, 6 months? It's some things are big goal planning, 6 months out, and other things are more tactical to-do lists. So try to divide and conquer it that way. See if any of that works for you.
Well, those are good.
Yeah.
I like that you call it your hot list and not your priority list, because sometimes I get in my head about my priority list and I'm like, well, everything's a priority.
Yep. I even have clients sometimes when it gets overwhelming and I'm like, all right, we're going to have a daily hot list meeting. And they're like, we are? I'm like, yep, it's gonna take 15 minutes. It's like, remember back in the day, we used to have like standing meetings where you'd come into the room and like nobody was allowed to sit down because if you sat down, the meeting would take too long. So it was a standing meeting and you're like, okay, they mean business. So I like that.
Hey, Riley, I'll
Um,
throw a few more at you.
Good.
Just because consulting clients the last 5 years, I've had quite a bit of what you're looking at. And so I'm kind of in between Rachel and Rod. In the morning, the first thing I'll do, and I've allocated out my day for the most part. Hopefully I can follow that schedule every day. But the first thing I do is I kind of just look through emails for the different companies and see if there's any hot spots that need to be addressed that day. But then I move into my top 5, and that top 5 that we've talked about before, having your top 5 critical tasks, those could be any one of the companies that I work for so that I can get past those top 5. And once I've achieved that, then I know I've got free space to go back to a project or back to a company that I'm helping out. So that's my combination between what I do and what Rachel does. But I also try to allocate, like some of my clients require hands-on. So I'm going to go to them. I know you like to go to your office at Black Rifle. So I would also schedule like, on Tuesday, I'm going to go to this client for the 4 hours, and that's going to take the place of my top 5 for the day or something like that. Right. So I do allocate the hours that I need to be on site for people on top of the other things. So it's kind of a combination of what Rod said, dedicating one day or block of time to a client. But I realize that emails and texts come throughout the day. I compare that to my top 5, what the priorities are. And then honestly, some things just take a little bit of brain power. So it's worth keeping that momentum going. Maybe like Rachel said, it's a 15-minute thing. You could also attack that if you give yourself free space on your calendar. Like in my afternoons, I'm 1 to 5 is labeled leads, meeting, and then floating hours. So those floating hours, I can address things that pop up during the day. In the morning, I do the heavy lifting. So hopefully that helps. It's a great topic. I love that you asked the question because it's good for everybody. Some heads are nodding. I think we're all kind of juggling a few things.
Who
So
else,
it's
who else does, Jim, remind me, who does the thing where they block their calendar for the morning? They don't take any meetings before like 11 or 12. Is it, I'm trying to remember, it's either Hermosi or is it Ed Milet?
I think it's Hermosi, and it was before 12. He blocks it all out, and I started trying to be a little bit more disciplined with that. So any of my like coffee meetings and stuff like that, I'm trying to schedule after 12 so that I'm sitting at my computer and I'm focused on computer type work in the morning, plus family, exercise, animals, farm life, all that stuff. So it's worked out pretty good when I make a conscious effort to schedule things afternoon. It's worked out pretty good.
The
I
other
do that.
thing,
I block out my time until 10:30 every day.
Yeah.
And that's my time for me to get like kind of like what you were saying, Jim.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, hopefully there's some tips in there for you to work on.
No, that was great because I am doing some of those things, but then it helps highlight some different things that I can try. So that's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
the other thing that happens sometimes for me is I get like bombarded by people who want to have coffee or who want to chat or who want to like catch up or intros and that kind of stuff. For like Friday mornings are my days for that. Like I don't sprinkle them throughout the week because it gets me distracted. If I'm gonna like just sit and like have like a nice to get to know you chat, like I try to get it all done in one sitting on Fridays. I don't know if that
I
helps.
have gotten better about my sit down chats with people.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah. Good. Cool. I also am curious if I could just jump in, this is kind of random, but if you guys could put in the chat, I want to know what books you guys are reading because we have a list on the public front end of the website of different business books that, Jim and Rod and I have recommended over the years. And, either in the chat or in our group text or something, I'd really love to know what books you guys love and what you're reading. Because I'm working on a little something for that. I'm currently working through Alex Hermosi's book as part of my 10 pages a day. And I really like it so far. So good. So, and then the other random thing I wanted to share is quick reminder for anyone who has a tangible product that you're selling. I love the handwritten thank you notes. And I just ordered something online from a new e-commerce vendor that I'd never ordered from. And you know, thank you so much for supporting our family business. You know, hope you have a great new year. It was just like, I forget how meaningful these little cards are. It's really thoughtful. So if you're not already doing that, I would, you know, just a little healthy reminder how that helps.
Rachel, you know, I wrote a note to Robert Greene after our event, and he wrote me a letter back. He says, I never get handwritten notes anymore. It's so nice that you sent that to me. You know, I mean, it's the little things. That was a good point. Hey, Rod, I don't think you should let Taylor off lightly. She had her hand up.
Yeah. Yes, Taylor. And even if you leave your video off, you're live. So let's go.
I'm live. Here I am.
Hi.
I'm so slow. I was trying to write out what books. Do you mean, Rachel, just business books or?
I mean, I guess I'm talking about nonfiction books.
Yeah.
It could be other things, but
Okay.
doesn't
Cool.
have to be
Well,
business.
I'll get to that then later. Thank you. Cool. So my question is a little bit funny, but I've been doing a lot of self-reflecting and trying to figure out why I have these people who are so experienced and you guys just have so much knowledge. And I can't figure out what questions to ask you. And I think maybe part of it is that everything that I've jumped into in the last year is so new to me that I'm almost like, it's not that I think I have anything figured out, but I'm not always sure what I need to know next. So my question is, how do you get better at asking questions? Does anybody have any tips?
Yes. Ask them. Don't be afraid. If you don't know and you have a question about anything, just ask the person. It doesn't matter if it's someone at the post office. Is there a better way to do this? Ask the question. You know, and part of it is slow down. I think sometimes we're always in such a hurry that we don't want to take the time when, you know, it's like, well, I'm not thinking about it right now. So if you've got questions, ask them. But here's number two, and this is something from, well, my wife, the midwife, always tells people, write your questions down, because you'll forget what that question was. And then it's going to haunt you. Then it's going to drop into your mind again 2 days later. It's like, oh yeah, that was there. Until you can cross it off your list, you need to write those questions down. So if you have a question about anything, whether it's, you know, shipping or manufacturing or customer service or billing, you know, I know some of what you're dealing with there. Write the questions down and then ask and say, am I doing this the right way, or is this in the right order? Don't be afraid to ask. And any one of us, you know, can answer those questions. And some of those are easy questions for us. You know, it doesn't take a 30-minute explanation. It takes a 2-minute, yeah, this is it. You know, a text, a phone call. So write the question down, number one. Number two, ask, and ask the right people.
Yeah,
So ask
I
for
think
referrals sometimes. You
yeah.
know?
Right. So I think where I get stumped is that I don't always have a question, but I know that there's so much for me to learn. So I guess, how do I get better at coming up with questions? Does that make sense?
It does. And before I turn this over to anyone else, I'm going to tell you this. You are already doing it. You are here. You showed up. You have asked questions. You do ask for advice. And you learn so much in business, no matter what your business is out there. You learn so much by osmosis, by just having your hands in it, by being around people in that industry. You learn something from all of them. And we teach this all the time. What can you learn from somebody else today? You know, what can we teach and what can we learn? You're already doing it, Taylor. Don't be hard on yourself, right? You know,
Always
but
hard on myself.
Ask if, well, I know that. You approach this the way you approach ballet, right? Tell me what to do and I'll work it to perfection. You know, you don't have to be perfect right now. You just have to get it done and keep doing it. You're picking it up by osmosis. You're going to be in 10 years, you will be leading these calls and you will be the expert on manufacturing and overseas shipping and all the other stuff. You will be the one. So you're already learning it.
Hey, I want to jump in real quick because I love the dynamic between Rod and Taylor. Listening to the advice coming from you, Rod. Taylor, I'll just tell you this. Like Rod said, just ask. You know, every time we have one of these calls, I call Rod to briefly just recap. Like, what do you think? What could we have done better? Did you like the call? To us, every time somebody asks a question, we're like, hey, we had some questions tonight because we are here to serve. We did not do this. I've already told everybody this isn't for our financial gain. This is because we have a passion for helping other people. And we can't help unless you ask the question. So please ask away. You've got a tool. You've got everybody's numbers. Ask one another. You know, it's human nature. So anyways, thanks for asking that question.
Mr. Spilson, your hand is up.
Yeah, quick note for Taylor. Sometimes when I'm struggling, I start thinking about if I had to explain this to someone else, do I understand it enough to be able to explain it? That may help drive some questions like, did I really grasp it? And if I had to repeat it, what would I need to ask to clarify? So that may provide some clarity. But also if, you know, you think about what you would do with that information, my mind will start wandering. I'll start the daydreaming of what can I do with this, and what more do I need to know to kind of take it to the next level. And then it starts changing how you think about it because you want to do something else with the information. So it's not just listening to hear them. You know, it's really an understanding to be able to then build on it.
Great points, Jim. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That is so
yeah.
helpful. I love that.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that, or anyone else have other questions, comments?
I think, Rod, if you want to have Rachel weigh in on your topic for the night, we didn't give her a chance to do that. Before she goes, though, I just want to thank Rachel for all the work you did on the website and the conversion back. I love how everything's laid out and how easy it is to find the past videos and all the links. It's right there in the center of the page on the website. So if you haven't seen it yet, super user friendly right now. I think the most important tool that you can get is the past videos, because you're going to hear questions like this that have been asked, not to mention the soft skills that we teach. So Rachel, thanks for that. Appreciate you.
You're so very welcome. Thank you for the affirmations. I love that. Compliments are my favorite thing. It's great. All right. So, I mean, the topic tonight, I feel like sometimes we're aligned and we have the same kind of approach on things, and other times I'm kind of like, oh, that's not quite me. Like, to your point, when you were like, I don't think I've ever seen Rachel reach her tipping point of like overflow. I was like, yeah, he knows me really well. I mean, I might work until I, you know, get pneumonia, and then I'm down for like 2 days, but then I'm right back at it again. But I think part of it for me, and you know, is I really love what I do, and it feels like a hobby that I just happen to get paid for. I really don't feel like it's work. So much as it's like an opportunity to be productive, or an opportunity to be creative, or learn something new, or connect with somebody. Like, I get a lot out of our work that we do, you know, not just like these calls I love, but you know, that personal satisfaction from helping my clients to achieve their goals, or helping my employees to achieve their goals. I had this wonderful moment a couple days ago where I got to do my favorite thing about being a business owner, right? My favorite thing is helping my employees meet their goals. And a lot of their goals are financial goals, and being able to, you know, help them achieve that goal that I know they set out like a year ahead to try to reach by this year, and then tell them that they got it. And like, you know, it just feeds my soul. So I get a lot out of the work that we do. And then what else was I going to tell you guys? I think it was, I wanted to say one thing about Taylor and when she was her question. I really loved that question. One of the things that I do, and I think I know Jim's gonna laugh at this one a little bit probably, because I share things that are like in development or being worked on, and like I never expect it to be perfect. I never ever expect it to be without feedback. And I made these shirts last year that said there is no failure, only feedback. Like I always want things to be a work in progress. Like, hey, give me your thoughts on this. Like, hey, give me your feedback. It's that way, it's never wrong. It's like it's always being co-authored. It's always getting better. We're working on it together. So, Taylor, as you're asking those questions, it kind of evolves over time, less from like, hey, like teach me this or answer this, to more like, these are my thoughts. Like, can you add to this? Or is there more, to evolve this? So, and I think working in a yes culture and a supportive, trusting environment really breeds that type of thinking. Historically, one of the most famous negative, no fear-based cultures that I can think of is the Irvine Company here in Orange County. They have this culture where like, they'll just one day decide that they're going to lay off like 200 people and they're gone, right? Or you walk into a meeting one day and you're like, oh, I've just been demoted and they changed my department. Oh crap. Like, what did I do? And then you find out you accidentally took someone's coffee and then bam. So it's like, I never wanted that kind of like an instability. I always wanted to be surrounded by people and who were yes culture, high trust, high transparency. So I think the more you're around those types of people, that's going to help with answering your questions too, and change the way you ask them. So it's less of a question at all, really. That's all I have to say about all those things.
All right. Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate it.
Mhm.
I have to say too that I love what I do. I really do. And so I'm not worried about me, but I know that there are other people who have struggled. And in my past careers as an entrepreneur, there have been struggles. There have been times where I beat my head against the wall and said, why am I doing this? Right. So I think the topic is relevant for that purpose, but I think it's also relevant for anyone who's listening out there now or in the future, for intrapreneurs, because I have worked for some very toxic companies, some very terrible environments. And Riley, I see in the chat you mentioned that as well. And it's good for all of us to know that that's what's out there, and that's what we need to change. So we're not just changing it within our own culture and our own company, but when we do business with those sorts of people, when we have interactions with people in those environments, we need to let them know that there is a better way, that they don't have to put up with that, number one, if they are. Number two, that if they're part of that toxic environment, that they need to and should change. And it's up to us to realize that that's the landscape that we live in and work in, that most of Americans live in and work in. And we want to be part of that change. I know that's part of the catalyst of why I want to do this. I want to help make every environment less toxic, more enjoyable, and more productive. And with those sorts of goals in mind, it doesn't matter what the company is, what the business is, we are making a difference. And that's what we're here to do. So again, sharing all this, I think it's absolutely, it makes me feel good about what we're doing. So anyway, those are my final thoughts on any of that. And we've got 3 minutes to go. I don't see any other hands up. We don't have anything else. I'm going to let you guys off the hook.
Wait,
Oh,
one
Rachel,
other thing
go
I
ahead.
wanted to say, just in case anyone wasn't on the group text, when you log into the member login and you're in the profile of if you scroll down, send me or send us any updates to your profile for the year. Like, you've got a new profile photo, or you want to link to a website instead of your LinkedIn profile, or whatever changes you might have. So please, you send those to leadership@youngentrepreneurssyndicate.com, to that email. That would be great. Thank you.
Love it.
Thanks,
Hey,
Rachel.
Rod, thanks for the call tonight. What's great about just listening to the dynamics, especially between the differences on you and Rachel, Rod, we're all different. And I hope that as members, you guys see the differences between us and the values that you're going to get out of that. I've been a member of a lot of other groups to see what they're doing or to learn from them. I think my next to favorite one besides here is the Arte Syndicate, because Andy Frisella and Ed Milet always had different opinions on things, and you got both perspectives. So here you get three, and just know that we're all different. We've all found our way, and leverage that. And I look forward to hearing from anybody. I would suggest, because you have all of our contacts on the website, Rachel put a jump on our calendar if you need to. If you just need to flush out your ideas and what you want to do for 2024, or if you have questions, Taylor, hit us up, schedule a time. We're happy to be there for y'all. So don't be afraid to do that. Right? I
We've
saw
got
your hand up.
We've
Did you
got
have
a minute
question?
left here, and Riley had her hand up, Jim.
It was a question for Rachel about logging into the site, so I just messaged her.
Oh, got it.
Oh, I'm glad you told me. I didn't want to miss that.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Uh,
I just need to reset my password, but it's not sending me an email to reset my password. So,
all right. I am gonna call you as soon as we hang up.
Okay. All
Okay.
right, everybody. Thank you very much. Happy New Year again. It was great to have you all on the call. I look forward to great things for 2024 from all of you. Thanks.
Thanks,
Good night.
guys.
Happy New Year, all.
Bye.